Hey everyone, welcome to 1732 Streaming's Freedom Circuit. I'm John, and we got a show for you guys today. If you guys don't mind, you already saw there down at the bottom, you can see the subscribe. Do me a favor, and if you don't mind, subscribe on whatever platform you happen to be on right now, whether that's Rumble, YouTube, or Facebook. You can find me at Rumble and YouTube at 1732 Streaming. And you can also find me on Facebook at Streaming John, and that's also Instagram as well. And if you guys don't mind on those platforms, drop some comments. Either one of them is fine. Excuse me. Any platform is fine. Just like it's a good chance for to interact with you guys. And as a matter of fact, I sent out a short the other day, a YouTube short and an Instagram reel, asking for help because I had researcher's block with some ideas, and you guys came through. So most of my show ideas today came from you guys. So let's go ahead and go over the agenda for today. All right, so today we're going to go over the transgender TSA agent sues over pat down ban. Wonder why. Sarah Beckstorms, I believe I'm saying right, murdered by the Afghan parolee. So this is the National Guardsman that was killed in D.C. And we're going to kind of touch on the Prince Andrew and Epstein file update. I don't have a whole lot there, but just a little bit of information. And then we're going to spend some time on the Obamacare subsidy fight that's going on right now. I think that's pretty important. So let's go ahead and jump right into it here. So first things first, let's go ahead and talk about the transgender TSA agent. So I got a video clip for you guys here. So let's go ahead and pull that up here.
TSA officer in Virginia is now suing the Department of Homeland Security for being banned from conducting pat-downs. TSA policy states that only male officers can perform pat-downs on male passengers, and only female officers can perform pat-downs on female passengers.
Seems pretty reasonable to me, actually.
That lawsuit obtained by the Associated Press reads in part, quote, solely because she is transgender, TSA now prohibits plaintiff from conducting core functions of her job, impedes
his job,
her advancement to higher level positions and specialized certifications, excludes her from TSA control
they need to get this right,
facilities, and subjects her identity to unwanted and undue scrutiny each workday, end of quote. The DHS pushed right back with this response. Does the AP want female travelers to be subjected to pat-downs by male TSA officers? What a useless and fundamentally dangerous idea to prioritize mental delusion over the comfort and safety of American travelers.
Let's go. Oh, fantastic. It's nice to see that someone in the government has common sense there, calling that individual a man. And yeah, I tend to agree with them. Why in God's name would you want your wife or daughter to be patted down by a man, in this situation in the TSA? I get in law enforcement, it's not always obtainable to have a female there because some agencies just don't have enough females to do it. And, you got to do what you got to do, right, in a dangerous situation. But the TSA, I mean, if you've been to an airport, you know that there's a good mixture of male and female agents there. So, you know, I don't understand, and they're suing. They're suing, right? Okay, that's absolutely ridiculous. I hope that gets thrown out and tossed into the garbage and, not taken very seriously because that is just absolutely ridiculous. I have no problems with that whatsoever. I have no problems with a transgender individual not being able to pat down either sex. They can't figure out what sex they are, so I don't know why they need to be out there patting down individuals when they can't even figure out what sex they are themselves. I wouldn't have much of a problem if they weren't in the TSA, to be completely honest with you. That's my opinion right there. What do you guys think? Drop some comments on that. Let me know what you think. And yeah, that's pretty short segment there. And that's in Virginia, by the way. I do not know which airport. I just know that it's happening in Virginia. I just don't know where. I'll try to find some more of that. And if you guys happen to know, drop some comments and let me know. So yeah, let's move on to the next thing here. Okay. So we're gonna move on to. I got another video clip for you guys. I got a couple video clips together. I hope y'all like that. Um, Sarah Beckstorm's murder by the Afghan individual in D.C. So this was a National Guard soldier who was just sworn in within, I believe it was within 24 hours. And the accused gunman, I don't know how to say his name. I'm not even going to try. This individual entered under Biden's Afghan parole program and then, later received, I guess, temporary asylum in April of 2025. But this individual was in the United States illegally for quite some time. And this really shows that our vetting process and the abuse of parole and asylum abuse, it's not right. I've always told you I'm not going to tell you where I work, and I'm still not going to do that. But we actually we were a part of some of these evacuees that came from Afghanistan, who were stationed here when they were brought here into the U.S. We provided services to them, pretty much 24/7 medical services. So it's a different, they're a totally different culture, totally different. They come from a totally different world than we are, than we do. And they were starting campfires inside of their wherever their domiciles were. They just trashed the places, where they were staying. And we could see that firsthand. So it's true. If somebody says that, it absolutely is true. It's a thing. And if anybody else wants to drop some comments, I know I got some friends that watched this that were a part of that um, deployment, we'll call it. Drop some comments in there and what you say, but don't drop who you worked for, guys. Just be smart, right? But yeah, drop some comments on what you guys saw as to how they were treating, the domiciles and just, in general, the area and stuff like that. But yeah, no, and it's absolutely disgusting. This individual is an animal. Let's go ahead and pull up some video clips here real quick.
Guard soldiers were shot on Wednesday near the White House in what officials described as a targeted ambush. The two soldiers are members of the West Virginia National Guard and were part of a high-visibility patrol a few blocks from the White House. At a press briefing, Metropolitan Police Assistant Chief Jeff Carroll said that the shooting happened at around 2:15 in the afternoon.
It appears, like I said, to be a lone gunman that raised a firearm and ambushed these members of the National Guard, and he was quickly taken into custody by other National Guard members and law enforcement members.
Carroll said that after an exchange of gunfire, other National Guard troops were able to subdue the shooter, who is now in custody after suffering gunshot wounds during the attack. FBI Director Kash Patel said the two soldiers remain in critical condition.
And we know that there's one soldier in critical condition at this point. We know that Sarah passed away from her injuries, I believe, a week ago at this point.
A Justice Department official said investigators identified the suspect as Ramanullah Lakhanwal, a 29-year-old Afghan national from Washington state. The official said the attack is being.
So this guy drove all the way from Washington State to D.C. to try to kill people, our National Guardsmen for one. These people put it on the line every single day, and now that they're targeted, is just insane. And I am absolutely tired of seeing people on Facebook, Instagram, what name your social media platform, doesn't matter, saying, these people wouldn't have been in that position if Trump didn't deploy the National Guard to D.C. Listen, I don't live too far from D.C. I have driven emergency vehicles through D.C. It is as bad as he said it was. It was absolutely that bad. He had the right to do that as the president. That is, the DC isn't a state. He was able to do that according to our Constitution, and he should have done that. And DC is safer for it. There's plenty of statistics out there. You can go look them up yourself. I highly encourage you to do so. But there is a dramatic drop in crime from when he deployed the National Guard to DC.
Investigated as an act of terrorism. Lakhanwal came to the U.S. in 2021 on a special visa program for Afghans who assisted the U.S. during the war and were vulnerable to Taliban reprisals after the U.S. withdrawal. But he overstayed his visa and is in the country illegally, according to the official. Donald Trump responded in a video posted on Truth Social.
As President of the United States, I am determined to ensure that the animal who perpetrated this atrocity pays the steepest possible price.
The U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services said late Wednesday that they have stopped processing all immigration requests relating to Afghan nationals, following further comments by Trump.
We must now re-examine every single alien who has entered our country from Afghanistan under Biden.
Amen. Amen. Those people were brought over here very hastily with very little background checks. You can't really do a background check because they don't keep records that well in Afghanistan, they especially during that time frame. There needs to be a thorough vetting process of these individuals before we can decide if they get to stay in our country.
And we must take all necessary measures to ensure the removal of any alien from any country who does not belong here or add benefit to our country.
Speaking to reporters, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said more troops would be deployed to Washington to, quote, secure the capital.
And that's why President Trump has asked me, and I will ask the Secretary of the Army, to the National Guard, to add 500 additional troops, National Guardsmen, to Washington, D.C.
FAFO, ladies and gentlemen, FAFO. If you're going to do something in our capital, they're going to secure the capital, and they should. For those of you who don't know what FAFO looks like, what it means, look it up. I'm not going to say it here. Very common phrase, but yeah. I fully support this. The Capitol needs to be secured. Families need to be able to visit the museums. They need to be able to go to the Capitol. They need to be able to walk through D.C. without, feeling that their life is in danger, honestly. And I'm not just talking about the tourist areas, right? You can walk through the tourist areas, and for the most part, you're going to be okay. If you accidentally wander off the beaten path, you shouldn't have to worry about your life.
National Guard troops have been in Washington since Trump deployed them in August, in the face of opposition from local officials and Democrats.
Why would Democrats not want a protective force inside the Capitol? Hell, they live there, or they work there at the very least. Why would you oppose wanting, more protection? It just doesn't make sense to me. I don't understand that. I don't even, as crazy as they are at times, this definitely doesn't make sense.
Trump has repeatedly claimed crime has vanished from the Capitol because of the deployment, an assertion at odds with the police department's official statistics.
All right, there you go, guys. So, that's absolutely sad that actually, that happened to Sarah. I feel very sorry for her family and friends and loved ones and stuff like that. But that individual should have never been here. And at the very least, that individual should have been deported at some point, and taken out of this country. Or they never vetted these individuals properly. It's these people come from another part of the world. They don't hold the same values we do, and it's just not compatible with the American way of life at the end of the day. If you want to come over here and you want to assimilate, I am totally good with that, and that's fine. Let's go. Let's do it. I'm good with that. But, these people have not shown that they want to assimilate to the way of life. They still hold allegiance to their country. Being Afghanistan, and this goes for most immigrants, when you see these people protesting, they're holding Mexican flags and Palestine flags and stuff like that. I say, if you don't want to be here, then just leave. Hell, we're even going to pay you to leave. We're going to give you $1,000 on the app and fly your ass back to wherever you came from. I mean, why are you still here? Everybody says they hate this country, but they still want to come here. Just, why? You have to ask yourself why. All right. So that's that update there on the absolute animal who murdered our poor soldier in DC. I don't have any issues if they give him capital punishment on that one there. Hope I don't get banned from YouTube for saying that. But, whatever, it is what it is. We'll just go to Rumble and do everything on Rumble where you can speak for free. So let's move on to Prince Andrew and the Epstein files. I do not have a whole lot on this. I've tried to find some, there is some materials out there, but, it's all kind of a little confusing right now. So the basics are King Charles has formally stripped Andrew Windsor of his prince title and remaining honors amid the newly released Epstein emails and material tied to Virginia Giuffre. So this is basically, he denied of, I guess, meeting this Virginia Giuffre, but her testimony and now these emails are showing that he has and that he lied. I really don't know a whole lot more about that. other than it seems like it was a cover-up. Andrew's email, Andrew pleading with Epstein to control the narrative as proof of a coordinated effort to suppress the truth. This wasn't just a rogue royal, it was a network of powerful people working to protect each other, is what it sounds like. And the only reason for this recent action is the overwhelming public pressure and the release of documents, not a sudden moral awakening from the monarchy, right? They knew about this for a long time. They were covering it up and they were acting, with impunity, basically. They thought they could get away with it. But now with the release of these files that are starting to come out, it's just, you can't cover it up anymore. It's out there and the public was outraged about it. So that's kind of the update there on Andrew. I don't have a whole lot. I want to do some more research on it, but if you guys happen to have any more information on that, drop some comments and stuff like that. Your comments are really helping me and pointing me in certain directions. I really do appreciate it. So yeah, all right, so let's move on to the Obamacare subsidy fight. All right, this is a big deal, guys. So a lot of us grew up. I remember when Obama was president. I was in high school, and there was just Obamacare was going to be the latest and greatest thing from the Democrat Party. That's their holy grail right there. And their savior, Obama, by the way, and I think he's a religious figure to him, to be completely honest with you. And it wasn't gonna raise healthcare costs. It wasn't, you could keep your doctor and all that good stuff, is what we were told. That was a lie. All of it is a lie. If you pay for healthcare right now, your premiums have gone up tenfold since that time frame. So let's go ahead and watch this here. There's some interesting information.
It is absolutely unaffordable. Premiums have gone up 80% since Obamacare was passed. 150 different hospitals have closed since Obamacare was passed. We have to do things differently. And the answer is not a COVID-era program that was created in 21. We need to look at some real reforms, real changes. Even with it expiring at the end of the year, 93% of all the people on Obamacare will still have very generous subsidies. 7% will lose it, but that 7% are people who are above 400% of the federal poverty level. Right now, there's folks being subsidized making $600,000 a year.
All right, so if that doesn't just piss you off, I don't know what will. But the fact that there are people out there making $600,000 a year and able to get these subsidies from the Obamacare or Affordable Care Act or whatever you want to call it, doesn't really matter. It's garbage to begin with. That should infuriate you. So that means that you're paying someone who, makes $600,000 a year. You're paying for their health care. I don't make anywhere near $600,000 a year. I don't even make $100,000 a year, and I have to pay for my health care, through my company, and it is damn expensive. And I don't get any subsidies from the government or anything like that. So, I am a huge fan of just gutting and killing Obamacare completely, getting rid of it. And if we got to put something else in its place, that's fine, but it needs to be a little more kind of like what we're trying to do with SNAP benefits right now. You need to prove that you actually need this to survive, and you can only be on it a limited amount of time, at the end of the day. So it absolutely infuriates me that, we have this fraud and abuse going on. So let's move on to the next video clip here.
Take on what Jason Smith told my colleague Jackie DeAngelis, in particular about the income caps. There is a report this morning in the Wall Street Journal that President Trump is looking at what the options are going to be for his new health care proposal. He's listening to his advisors, and that basically one of them is you handle the income caps in particular, and then you also maybe have a conversation about these health savings accounts. Your reaction to that?
Yeah, Cheryl, the income caps on both levels, both on the lowest level and on the highest level, need to be looked at. When you have individuals, as he pointed out, making $600,000 a year, the American taxpayer should not be subsidizing them.
He is absolutely correct. We should not be subsidizing that. We already talked about that. So let's move on to the next clip here.
So remember, Cheryl, and I'll say this 1,000 times, the ACA was written by insurance companies for insurance companies. We need to get some legislation back.
So, and remember, that is true. The healthcare agencies are the ones that basically wrote this Affordable Care Act. So obviously, I think there's some bias there, right? At the end of the day, there's some bias there. They want to make sure that they're getting maximum returns, and it just doesn't seem. Yeah, I don't think the healthcare companies should be writing, bills that would give them more money at the end of the day, right? I mean, that's absolutely ridiculous. And obviously a huge conflict of interest. I don't get it.
Act that actually fixes a great deal of that. I do think we need to extend these in some degree with the appropriate reforms with a glide path to eradicating them at some point in the future.
So I actually 100% agree with that. I don't mind extending like I said, I think we should get rid of it entirely, but I understand that there needs to be an adjustment period and a lot of things can't happen overnight. So I'm okay with us having, an extension of some sorts with, some reform. Basically, like I said, that they need to do what they do with SNAP. You only get the basics. You don't get to take advantage of the taxpayer, and then eventually they need to eradicate it completely. I agree with that comment 120%. And what do you think, guys? Do you think that's a reasonable statement? Do you think that's the way to go? Start small and work your way to getting rid of the program completely. And like I said, there does need to be something in place. Same thing with SNAP benefits, right? There are parts of the population that truly need these benefits, and we as a people should definitely, help them. We should do that. That's the right thing to do. This country is, shows nothing but charity all the time. I am good with that. If you're truly disabled, especially if you're a disabled veteran, if you have some sort of mental deficit or physical deficit where you can't work, fine. We should be helping you guys out in conjunction with other charities as well. I'm good with that. But if you're an able-bodied individual, if you're a 30-year-old man with no children and there's nothing wrong with you, your ass needs to be out there working and paying for your health care. I should not be paying for it. No questions asked at the end of the day. Like, you lose your job and you need a month to find another job. Okay, fine. That's, unemployment. Fine. I'm good with that, right? Again, there needs to be a time frame on it. But you shouldn't be on it for months and months and months and years and years and years at a time, just like SNAP, right? Get your ass out of the chair, go get a job. Like I said before, you might not want to work at McDonald's, but they have great benefits for full-time employees. So get out of the chair, go get a job, support your family, and support yourself. I should not be doing that at the end of the day. So that's the update I have on the Obamacare subsidy fight that's going on right now. Some of the problems that we have right now is that we do have some Republicans that are wanting to extend these benefits in their entirety for, I think is a couple of years. I'm not a huge fan of that. We have midterms coming up. I think we need to change this now before the midterms come around because, God only knows what's going to happen in the midterms. And, with them fighting amongst themselves, you never know what the outcome is going to be. So I think this needs to be taken care of right away. And it needs to be. And if we win the midterms, that's awesome, right? We can do more work, but we need to do this now while we hold the power. We need to take care of it now. We need to put it in the law, and it needs to be done and dealt with right now. You have to assume whether you think we're going to lose the House, the Senate, the president, well, not the presidency in the midterms, the House, the Senate, whether you think we are or not, doesn't matter. You have to assume that you're going to lose one of those, and you have to act accordingly. We have to get this done and over with now, like the SNAP benefits, like the health care, especially any Second Amendment laws that need to be passed through, national concealed carry and stuff like that. We need to start pushing. We need to start acting like we're going to lose everything. All right. We need to act like that. You have to fight to your fullest until the very end at the end of the day, and then start the next fight. And by the way, we should be thinking about the midterms. If you're not thinking about the midterms right now, then you're behind the eight ball, guys. You need to start thinking about, you need to start advocating, you need to start pushing, for, GOP representation. I'd say conservative representation, but GOP representation. You need to start thinking about that now. Where I live here in Virginia, we need to start pushing. Unfortunately, it looks like the state of Virginia is going to do everything it can to just absolutely screw us. There might not anything we can do about it this go around, but we currently have 2 Democrat senators anyways, so there's not really anything going to change there on the national level, as far as Virginia is concerned. So, I mean, Virginia, we have our own fight and we need to get into it, but it's going to take a long time to correct Virginia if it can be fixed. As long as we have all those government employees up in D.C., we're not going to stand a chance. But everywhere else, and in Virginia, you need to start thinking about the midterms. You need to start pushing forward and, get on, find out who your local representatives are and figure out who their opposition is. And, start calling them to the mat, start asking questions, start emailing them and all that good stuff, see what their plans are. And, hey, post some shorts or something like that. Hey, Representative blah, blah, blah believes in blah, blah, blah. Get the message out there. That's our job. We need to do that. So, all right, guys. Well, that's all I got for you today. Do me a favor, if you don't mind, like and subscribe on whatever platform you happen to be watching on right now. You can follow us at 1732 Streaming on Rumble and on YouTube. And you can also follow us at Streaming John on Facebook and Instagram as well. I hope to start doing my X account here in a little bit, but that's going to take some time. And if you don't mind, drop some comments. Always looking for ideas for the next show. I really appreciate you guys. And I just want to give a shout out to my brother CP for some of these, my buddy Kiefer and my buddy Jason. Those guys really actually gave me pretty much all the ideas for this show, and I covered the topics that they recommended. So really appreciate it, guys. And if you got any more ideas, keep dropping them, man. I mean, this is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to engage with you guys. I'm trying to give you the content that you guys want and, hopefully provide some answers and some insight into the everyday man. All right, guys, I'll talk to you guys later, and keep your head on a swivel. Stay safe. Peace.